Right, gather round you lot. I've got a tale that's going to knock your socks off. Imagine the scene. It's the height of World War II and tensions are running high. The seas are a battleground and every ship is a potential target. Now picture this. A couple of German battleships, all guns blazing, cutting through the waves with a menacing presence. These aren't just any ships. These are the pride of the Kriegsmarine, the German Navy. They're armed to the teeth, bristling with cannons and ready to unleash hell on anything that crosses their path. The sailors on board are seasoned veterans, hardened by countless battles, and they're on a mission. Now, on the other side of the horizon, we have a British aircraft carrier. This isn't just any carrier, it's a floating fortress, a symbol of British naval power. It's packed with aircraft, ready to launch at a moment's notice, and its crew is just as determined and battle-hardened as their German counterparts. The stage is set for an epic showdown. Sounds a bit like a chihuahua trying to mug a Great Dane, doesn't it? The sheer audacity of it all is enough to make anyone chuckle. But this isn't a comedy sketch, it's a real-life naval confrontation. Well, that's what everyone thought. The idea of these two naval giants clashing seemed absurd to many. People couldn't believe it. They thought it was a joke, a tall tale spun by sailors with too much time on their hands. But hold on to your hats, because sometimes truth is dafter than a pantomime cow. The reality of what happened next is stranger than fiction. It's the kind of story that makes you question everything you thought you knew about naval warfare. We're diving headfirst into a story so improbable, so ludicrous, that it defies all logic. It's a tale of bravery, strategy, and sheer luck. The kind of story that, if it weren't true, you'd swear it was written by a team of drunken pigeons. So, buckle up and get ready for a wild ride through one of the most unbelievable naval battles in history. This is a story that will leave you shaking your head in disbelief and marveling at the unpredictability of war. First up, let's meet our unlikely heroes. The German battleships Bismarck and Tirpitz. Imagine two burly blokes built like brick outhouses, sporting 15-inch guns that could lob shells further than a particularly energetic game of shot put. These behemoths were the pride of the German Navy, designed to smash enemy ships into tiny, splintery pieces. Subtlety? Not their strong suit. Now onto their supposed victim, HMS Ark Royal, the British aircraft carrier. Picture a floating airfield bustling with planes, pilots, and enough tea to drown a small island. This was the future of naval warfare, a technological marvel capable of launching airborne attacks from miles away. But even the most advanced ship has its weaknesses. And in this case, those weaknesses were about to become painfully obvious. Now, you might be wondering, how on earth could two lumbering battleships hope to hit a nimble aircraft carrier? Good question. The Ark Royal wasn't exactly defenseless. It had anti-aircraft guns that popped off shells like a caffeinated popcorn machine, and nimble little fighter planes that could dance around the lumbering battleships. It was a bit like a high-stakes game of whack-a-mole, with very explosive consequences. But here's the thing about those fighter planes. Back then, they were basically biplanes held together with string and prayers. They were slow, clunky, and about as maneuverable as a drunken pigeon. Plus, their bombs were about as effective as a wet firework. So while the Ark Royal's defenses were impressive on paper, in reality, they were about as reliable as a chocolate teapot in a heatwave. So picture the scene. The Bismarck and Tirpitz, guns blazing, lobbing shells towards the frantically maneuvering Ark Royal. Explosions erupt all around, the air thick with smoke and the pungent aroma of cordite. It's a scene of utter chaos, a deafening symphony of destruction. But amidst the mayhem, something remarkable happens. Or rather, doesn't happen. You see, the Ark Royal's fighter planes, bless their cotton socks, were having a bit of an off day. It was one of those days where nothing seemed to go right. The pilots, usually sharp and precise, were struggling to hit their targets. The skies were clear, the enemy was in sight, but for some reason the bullets just weren't connecting. It was as if the planes had minds of their own, deciding to take a holiday from their usual duties. The pilots, with their stiff upper lips, tried to maintain their composure, but you could see the frustration in their eyes. They were seasoned veterans after all, not used to such mishaps. Maybe the tea was cold, or the pilots had a touch of the flu, but their aim was about as accurate as a blindfolded dart thrower. Imagine the scene. Pilots huddled in the ready room, sipping on lukewarm tea, trying to shake off the chills. They exchanged puzzled glances, each wondering if it was just them or if everyone was having an off day. The usual banter was replaced with silence as they mentally prepared for another sortie, hoping the next one would be better. But alas, the results were the same. The enemy planes seemed to dance around their bullets, almost mocking their efforts. It was a sight to behold, but not in a good way. And as for those anti-aircraft guns, well, they weren't faring much better. The gunners, usually so reliable, were having their own set of problems. The guns, which had been meticulously maintained, seemed to have developed a mind of their own. They fired, but the shells went wide, missing their targets by a mile. The crew worked frantically, adjusting sights, recalibrating, but nothing seemed to work. It was as if the entire ship was cursed. The enemy planes swooped in, unscathed, while the gunners looked on in disbelief. Let's just say they were firing blanks, metaphorically speaking, of course. The frustration was palpable. The gunners, usually a jovial bunch, were now grim-faced and silent. Each miss was a blow to their morale. They prided themselves on their accuracy, their ability to protect the ship. But today, they were powerless. The enemy planes seemed to taunt them, flying low and slow, daring them to hit. But no matter how hard they tried, the results were the same. It was a bitter pill to swallow. It was a comedy of errors, a farce of epic proportions, all working in the Germans' favour. The British crew, usually so disciplined and efficient, was in disarray. Orders were misheard, signals were crossed, and the chaos only grew. The Germans, on the other hand, couldn't believe their luck. They took full advantage, pressing their attack, knowing that the British defences were in shambles. It was a day that would go down in history, not for the bravery or skill of the British forces, but for the sheer number of mistakes made. A comedy of errors indeed, but one with very real consequences. And then it happened. Whether by sheer dumb luck or a mischievous act of fate, a single shell from one of the German battleships found its mark, striking the Ark Royal in a critical spot. The mighty carrier, once a symbol of British naval dominance, was mortally wounded. She listed heavily to one side, like a tipsy waiter carrying a tray full of soup, before slipping beneath the waves. So there you have it. The improbable, the ludicrous, the downright hilarious tale of how two German battleships managed to sink a British aircraft carrier. This incident, which sounds like it was plucked straight out of a satirical war novel, actually happened during the chaos of World War II. The British aircraft carrier, despite its size and might, found itself outmaneuvered and outgunned by the smaller, more agile German ships. It was a classic David versus Goliath scenario, but with a twist of wartime absurdity. It's a story that proves that even in the midst of war, truth can be stranger and far more unpredictable than fiction. The British, known for their naval prowess, were caught off guard by the cunning tactics of the German Navy. The Germans, on the other hand, couldn't believe their luck as they watched the mighty British carrier succumb to their relentless assault. It was a moment that highlighted the unpredictability of war, where the unexpected often becomes reality, and far funnier than anything we could ever invent. Imagine the surprise and disbelief on both sides as the events unfolded. The British sailors, who had been confident in their ship's superiority, were left scratching their heads while the German sailors celebrated their improbable victory. It was a rare moment of levity in an otherwise grim and brutal conflict, a reminder that even in the darkest times, humor and irony can still find a way to shine through. And the moral of the story? Perhaps it's that no matter how powerful or invincible one might seem, there's always a chance for the underdog to prevail. It's a lesson in humility and the importance of never underestimating your opponent. The British learned this the hard way, and the Germans reveled in their unexpected triumph. It's a tale that has been told and retold, not just for its historical significance, but for the sheer incredulity of it all. Well, I suppose it's that even a Chihuahua, with enough determination and a bit of luck, can sometimes take down a Great Dane. This analogy perfectly encapsulates the essence of the story. The German ships, though smaller and seemingly less formidable, had the tenacity and audacity to challenge the British carrier. And in the end, It was their boldness and strategic ingenuity that led to their success. With a bit of luck and a whole lot of audacity can sometimes achieve the unthinkable. It's a reminder that in life, as in war, the outcome is never certain, and the smallest player can sometimes make the biggest impact. The story of the German battleships and the British aircraft carrier is a testament to this timeless truth. Can sometimes take down a Great Dane. So, the next time you hear a story that seems too strange to be true, remember this tale from World War II. It just might be that reality is indeed stranger and funnier than fiction.